Right. Excuse me there. So I've just got myself a piece of card, a piece of Lisa's brilliant super smooth card here. It's really lovely to do any sort of colour blending on, and with the graduation of the inks. What I'm using today are the Distress Oxides, which are really lovely to blend and smooth over the paper, but if you use a really nice super smooth cardstock as well, it makes your job and the blend an awful lot easier. So I'll show you how I actually created this card. Now what I'm going to do is just cut down a piece of the card because I don't want to work on a whole A4. Now to create this, the way I actually cut the card in for this one was to actually cut the card lengthways. So this was the original piece of card that I used. The other part of the that makes up the A4 is what I actually done this colour blend on. And the reason why I done that was I used my nesting square die to cut out the panel. Now you can use whatever dies you have. It would be really nice if you could actually die cut a circle as well. I do have the circles available. I do have the circles available here. These are the torn edge ones, and these are actually in stock actually. And I'll show you why it's a good idea to work on lengthways as opposed to cutting the card in half this way, if that makes sense. Because when you want to cut out the panel that's going to go on the front of the card, you can fit your panel or your nesting die on one part of the cardstock there, and then you can take, where's everything disappearing today? There we are. And then you can take your die, your coordinating die that comes with the embossing folder, and you can actually, you've got space to cut out the elements on that same piece of cardstock, and obviously you can cut that out multiple times and move that along, and you'll see why that's important in a minute, because when I make the actual graduation I'll be actually doing the stripes lengthways like so. Okay, let's get going. Now I'm obviously using Lisa's fabulous brushes as well today. These are fantastic, and I know she's got them on the show today, so it's great to actually be able to use them for you, knowing that they're in stock as well. I think they're in stock, they were last time I looked anyway. But as well as creating a super smooth blend, because we've got such a dense brush head at the top here, because of the size of them, these larger size ones, they actually cover an awful lot of area really quick, which when you creating these blends is really ideal. So the colours I'm using today are, in the Distress Oxide I'm using Fired Brick, the Picked Raspberry and the Antique Linen. Now these wouldn't necessarily be the obvious choices because they don't necessarily, they're not in the same colour family to create a really ultra smooth blended effect where it seamlessly goes from one colour to another. But I really like the combination of these together, and you can get a really nice smooth blend, and you can obviously see a change from the darkest colour up to the lightest colour. So I'm just going to pick up plenty of ink on my brush, and initially I'm just going to lay down as much as I can, being really liberal along the length of your A4 card. Now, working along the length of the A4 card, to say you may get a little bit sort of worried that it's so much, you know, such a big area to blend, but just work with it. I mean, the brushes do a lot of the work. I really don't need to press all that hard at all. Make sure you pick up plenty of ink. Don't be shy with the amount of ink that you pick up on your brush, and just work in circular movements up and down the length of that card, and you can see straight away how quick we've got that sort of intensity of colour down the side there. And you can see that by creating these circular movements, I've got a really diffused edge on this inside edge here, and that is perfect for when you want to create like the ombre effect like this. Now I'm just going to clean my brush off a little bit. All I've got myself is just a paper towel and just brushing the excess off. I'm not going to worry too much about getting it perfectly clean, because I'm going in next with the picked raspberry. So I shall pick up plenty of ink again, and I shall work from the sides in circular motions and just work my way down from the edge of the card into the centre like so. And you can see again straight away the amount of colour that gets put down in a really short space of time. You know, you really don't have to work that hard at all, and I think that is definitely testament to the brushes. They make the job so much easier, and you can see we've got a really smooth blend going on. And once you've actually laid down enough colour, start working your brush just gently in circular motions into that orange area, or the area, the colour stripe that you've put down firstly, because so it could depend on the colour combinations that you've used. It might be that you're trying out some blues to use the snowflake embossing folder, or maybe greens, or even just straight pinks. But it's a really nice technique to use. You can see, just carry on working down, working into the previous colour, so you do get a bit of a blend going on there. Okay, you see that's coming together so quickly. Now bear with me, I'm just going to clean that away, because we're actually changing colour quite drastically now, because we'll be going into using the antique linen. Now for this I will change my brush. I shall go, it's just the next brush down, it's slightly smaller but it's still a really good size to use. So same technique again, just pick up plenty of ink on your brush and just circular motions, just start blending that onto the page like so. And you can see how quick that ink goes down. Work it into the middle section, in this case the pink, because you want to get a really nice, you really want the colours to meet well and not leave a white gap. But you can even see with the lighter colours, here that the coverage of the ink onto the white paper is just perfect. I mean, I love using antique linen. I think it's a really useful neutral colour. Okay, right, now you may notice that we do have obviously a lot of a harsher line between the antique linen and the picked raspberry there. I mean, that's to be expected, but one way to soften that is come back in with your bigger brush that you was using for your pink ink, and just work your way down that line. You don't need to pick up any more ink from your ink pad, but what you do is just gently just start blending that colour in, and you'll see that that line just gradually diffuses. So it's a bit like if you were I suppose blending makeup, sort of blending your brusher. You wouldn't want such a harsh line, you would want to sort of just work your way into the colour there and just generally buff it all out. So the more that you work this, that's the smoother the the blend happens. And you can see that that's actually worked and blended out that harsh line that was there. Now if you wanted to, you could always come back in with your darker colour, the fired brick, and just add a bit more colour in if you feel like the darker colour has been sort of lost a little bit. But actually by coming in again with that darker colour, I'm actually creating an even smoother blend between that and the middle colour there. Now I find this really, really therapeutic. I can spend hours and hours doing this and get quite lost in that. You find yourself just sort of working your way, and you add a little bit more, and you take, you blend it well, and you get a really, really nice effect. Okay, so now that I've done that, again I shall bring in those dies, and you'll see the advantage of why I've used a thin strip, and I've used the length of an A4 piece as opposed to this way, because you have that same graduation running along each of the dies that you use. And when you come to die cut your centre panel, you do actually manage to get all three colours within that area. Now I've used the square one. If you were blending onto a piece like this, and you were perhaps blending your stripes along this way, the stripes obviously would end up a lot thicker, and so when you come to die cut your smaller sort of panel to go onto the card, the chances of you actually making that span all three colours would be sort of really quite tricky. So that's why you have the advantage of using a thinner strip of card. You manage to get all three blends in a nice equal amounts, and then you can go ahead and die cut whatever accessories it is that you want to put with the embossed panel. I'm obviously using the Variegated leaf embossing folder, which comes with the 3-leaf die which matches 3 of the leaves on the embossing folder there. So what I would do now, I would die cut these panels, and I would die cut my leaves, and then I would run them all through the embossing folder, and that will then give me my embossed panel and my embossed leaves that do also have a tiny little bit of graduation on them as well, depending on where you die cut them. And that is so pretty because you're not quite sure what you're going to get. Obviously if you die cut them down into the darker area, you'd have some more of the orange, but I think the randomness of how the leaves fall within the graduation, I think, is really, really pretty. Okay, so now we can start making up the card. So I've already put my mounting panel on there, so I can mat and layer my embossed panel onto the square. Now I set this off a bit offset actually. I didn't actually put the square in the centre. That's because I wanted a lot more of the white at the bottom, because I wanted the leaves to actually sort of cross over onto the white, and I think that's just a really nice effect, and it makes the leaves stand out a lot more, as you can see on the original here. I'm just looking at my screen. Hopefully you can see this because my screen is awfully blurred. Hopefully you'll be getting a better reception where you are. Okay, so now all we need to do really is just to arrange our leaves and our sentiment. Now I stamped a sentiment to go onto this card here. These ones unfortunately aren't in stock, but I'm sure you all have various different sentiments collected over the various shows that Lisa's done for us. So you'll have a huge choice of what sentiment to be putting on your card. And I know it's actually a lot of people don't put their sentiments on straight away. They make the card and then wait until they are going to use the card before they put the sentiment on, which is a really nice way of doing it, because then obviously you're not tied to what you decided at the time for the card. But these are cards, say, really nice to make. If you do decide to go in for the blending and go for and actually do the blending over a whole of an A4 piece of card, which is completely doable if you have the time to be able to sit down and do that, you know, that's perfect. Do it over a piece of A4 card, then you can make multiple cards out of that, and then you can leave that in your stash and you'll be able to die cut sentiments from it, so you have all the coordinating pieces. Now if you just notice here, I'm actually using the framed sentiments this time around, and I've used the birthday, and I'm just cutting around that. I'm using the background as the matte and layer colour, so that's a coloured piece of cardstock, but the birthday, which I'll show you in a second, was actually die cut from the ink blending that I done. So if I actually move that up here, you'll see we have some of the pink and that blend, some of the orange, and that blends into the pink. So that gives a really super effect that we can pop just onto the card there. And then we can just spend our time arranging the leaves to suit. Now I tried to stay away from the orange of the leaves because of the way that I've set the embossed panel here, and these lighter ones do actually sort of pop more against the darker areas of the card. So we could possibly arrange the leaves like so, and then we could add another one, or let's say that's entirely up to you. It depends on how you're feeling at the day. So just before I go, actually, what I did want to do, I just wanted to show you the same effect or the same technique, but actually instead of working onto a smooth piece of unembossed card, I just wanted to show you how you can do the blends directly onto an embossed piece of card if that's the way round that you want it to work. Actually, because I'll be quite interested to see how it works. I'm sure we'll get a different effect from this as well, but it will also show you how well these brushes work directly onto the embossed paper. These brushes are so easy and so versatile to use that it just makes any of these sort of techniques seem a lot more achievable. I've used the traditional blending sponges for years and years and didn't think I would actually change, but the more I'm using these brushes, I think the more of a convert I'm becoming. And say, I'm so pleased that they're actually in stock, or they were available for you today, so I could actually use them for you now. So you can see here I'm blending the darker colour, and straight away we've got a completely different effect from blending as we did onto our smooth piece of cardstock. And it's a really nice effect actually, because what it's doing is actually picking up the embossed detail a lot more than it would have done had I embossed directly onto this. So let me just carry on to this. I think this is a really useful technique to see, because I know a lot of people, they've had their embossing folders at home and they've asked how can you actually blend the ink directly onto them. So we can do that for you now. Actually, this is a really nice effect. And just because we're working onto an embossed card, it doesn't change how you actually work your ink into the paper. Just carry on going. And then we can move, let me just mop up this colour, because otherwise the lighter colour will pick that up and that will tint. And I don't want that at this stage. So I shall come in with my smaller brush and the antique linen, and we shall work our way across the page with a lighter colour. And you'll see that the background area that isn't embossed or debossed at this stage picks up less colour, and it still gives some lighter highlights actually, which is really interesting. It looks like the page has sort of been lit from behind. It gives a really soft look. So now we have our 3 bands. That means I can come back in with my bigger brush, which has got some of the pink on. I don't need to add any more ink. I just need to work that onto the page and just brush up slightly into the antique linen area and just smooth away that harsh line. Now I think what I might do, I'll just come in with the fired brick with a bigger brush and just blend away the line, or make the line a bit more distinct between that darker colour and the pink. There we are. Actually, that's a really nice blend. If anybody has these inks at home, if anybody has the picked raspberry and the fired brick, I'd really recommend giving that a go, because that is a super colour. And that blends, although you wouldn't necessarily think they're from the same colour family, the way that that blends from the sort of the orangey brown into the pink is really nice. Actually, I really like that. So there we are. You can see 2 different techniques. Well, it's one technique actually, but with 2 different effects. You can see how different those looks are, and it depends on how much you actually work onto the embossed folder. If you just worked lightly onto the embossed piece of card, you'd have far more lighter areas in the background, a bit like this here, as opposed to the way this works here. I really like that. Plus you still have the deboss on the area. Let's just do that just out of interest now. You see I'm playing now. I'm going to work onto the deboss side, and I'm just only going to do it lightly, just to show you the difference. So the debossed sides give you a different look again, and depending on the project that you're making, this may be the look it is that you're going for. So I'm just going to do this a bit lighter, but we can still do the blend. I'll just take the pink. And you can tell here I'm having a real play, sort of going off piste a little bit as to what I planned. So I should come in with my antique linen and the smaller brush, and we'll just blend that in like so. But I think it's really useful for you to see just the different ways that you can use the embossing folder. I know, I'm pretty sure Heidi's got a live coming up tomorrow evening, and I'm pretty sure she'll be using the embossing folders again, but in a completely different way to what I'm using them. And I'm not sure if she's using the Christmas ones or not. It's possible that she is, but it really doesn't matter. So regardless of the design that we're using, if you have one of Lisa's embossing folders, obviously these techniques can work straight across the board with them all. So there we are again. That's the debossed area, which looks very different again. And perhaps if we were to line up the leaves and the sentiment directly onto this, it would give a different look. Again, I really like that. There we are. So, there's just so many different possibilities for you to use, and that's a really different card. And let me just put that onto a card blanket just to show you how that might look if you were to perhaps even mount that onto a coloured cardstock in the background. That gives you a different look to what we created there. So just by using one product, one of Lisa's designs, we have got there like 2-3 different looks for you. Okay, so we can even add our leaves in. Right. Now I'm playing. I think I might continue to have a play afterwards. So hopefully, looks like my internet stayed on through all of that, and you was able to catch most of it. Hopefully you'll have had a better reception than what I can see on my screen at the moment. But what I will do, obviously when I load this up and put it onto YouTube, it will be a recording straight from my phone, so it will be a better reception. It will certainly be a better and less blurred. I'm just reading the comments here. Elizabeth from a design team, yes, hours of fun with the embossing folder. She's up to 17 different techniques with how to use them. That's amazing. And actually that will be worth checking out, because I'm pretty sure that Elizabeth has put together various videos which are on our YouTube channel, documenting some of them, if not all of them at this stage. It's possible that she's done 2 actually, but definitely go on to our YouTube channel and find those out, because it's really nice to watch somebody else come up with the ideas and perhaps different ways to use them. They use different colourways, so that's definitely one to go and look at. And I know various other design of us on the design team have used the embossing folders before and used them in different ways. So thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. Apologies for the delay at the start, but we got there in the end. I apologise if you can hear any noise in the background. The puppy's decided she's had enough and needs some attention, I think. So I shall love you and leave you this afternoon. I hope you'll tune in to Lisa's next show. It's at 4:30. Check the schedule, but certainly around that time. And Heidi, as I say, will be with you tomorrow evening at a usual slot at 7 o'clock. There won't be a live from Dawn this week, but there will be quite likely next week. So it will be great to have her back on board. And I shall leave you for this afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye now.